We're good to go. We only have 3 attacks though, so this is kind of tight. Will they have the third PG? Will they have the third PG? That's the question. Hey, how's it going everyone? And should be here today with another video. Today we're going to be doing a deck profile on Link Joker's SCHWARZCHILD Dragon. However you may pronunciate it, I think that this is, in my opinion, the better variant of Link Joker right now for ranked play. And primarily this is because it has a better lock effectiveness. Okay, so without further ado, let's go to talking about the cards and then kind of compare this list with the non-right chain build, which I may cover in the next video if there's enough, attention for this. And we can go through gameplay as usual to see how the deck works out in practice. All right, so I guess without further ado, let's get started with just talking about the deck list. I mean, it's just right here. First of all, we're gonna be playing the right chain, right? Micro Hold Draco Kid. So this right chain is the when you ride the grade 1, check top 7 for the grade 2 or grade 3, add it to your hand. And if you didn't ride the right grade 1, or if you missed the plus, call this to a rearguard circle. So even if you miss, it's a 5k booster, which is really nice. And if you do get the grade 1, then you get to get the right chain successfully. And +1, whether that's the grade 2 or grade 3, is really, really good. The grade 2 definitely really helps. And the grade 3 is useful for the Persona Blast anyway. So definitely really good with how the ride chain really works later on. We have 4 PGs, 1 SP1, just to flex. If you haven't seen the pack openings, go check that out. Play 4 Lanthanums. Lanthanum, Demon Claw, Starvader, Lanthanum. I think you're going to be playing this at 4 for either build. Rearguard Circle, when your opponent's rearguard is locked, you get to +3. This card is really, really important in this build because you're going to be playing extremely aggressively. Sometimes because of this aggression, you're going to run out of steam. And during your final, when you're at 4, when you're at 5, during your final turns, when you can afford to lock 1 or 2, Lanthanum comes up as a beater by itself and actually helps you hit because you really need those beaters. This deck does not have a 7+3 yet. Even when they do, it is a Starvader name only, so it wouldn't synergize well with the right chain. And this is why Lanthanum is really important. You have a lot of effective locks, which means that that 10k beater or 13k beater comes in really helpful. In addition, when you're trying to catch up, when you somehow put yourself in a pinch, you need to catch up on damage and go for broke. Lanthanum can become like a 7k booster, and when you lock 3, that's a +9. 16k booster, hits over basically any numbers you need. You can go from 3 to 6 just because Lanthanum helps you build up the column. So it's really, really important. Obviously, we're going to play 4 Gravity Ball Dragons. A Gravity Ball Dragon skill is if you have the grade 0 in your soul, +1. And in addition, if you miss the right chain, you get to check top 7 and fix it. And this is really huge because we will go into how important that grade 2 is right now. The grade 2 skill, again, SP, gotta flex. Skill is if you have the grade 1, +1. And in addition, Vanguard Circle, when placed, if you have the grade 1 in your soul, lock 1 of your opponent's rearguards. The biggest difference between the right chain variant and the non-right chain variant is Gravity Collapse Dragon, right? And the reason being is that, yes, of course, you still have Mobius Breath, and we still do play Mobius Breath in this build, but Mobius Breath is Vanguard Circle on hit a Vanguard, lock 1. This is on place Vanguard Circle, right? So this is a huge difference because it means that you can lock your opponent's front row without having to attack into their intercepts. It means that on your grade 2 turn, ride Gravity Collapse. If your opponent's greedy, punish them for that, even if it's a grade 2. The non-right chain variant cannot punish your opponent for putting out intercepts because Mobius Breath can't do that. You can only punish your opponent if they put up a grade 1 or grade 0 in the front row. So this is the biggest difference. In addition, it's obviously a 10k body. And the right chain helps you fix that just in case you missed the ride. So, obviously the backup ride is still going to be Mobius Breath. It's still a really, really good card on hit lock 1. But even if you ride the Mobius Breath, as long as you have the grade 1, well, it fixes it. It gives you another shot of getting that on ride lock 1. Yeah. 10k vanilla helps you hit numbers. I know a lot of people like the 8+3 whenever you have a locked unit. Some people like the 9+3 whenever you lock 1. I think that both are neat, but the 10k is just simple. It's simple. This deck is not very lock efficient, right? This is the biggest difference as well. You know, you don't play 4 Nebulas. You don't aim for break ride turns where you just lock cheaply. You don't play your 8k on hit lock 1 because, well, this deck is about aggressive locking, and if you're going to be aggressive anyways and you're going to push for numbers early game, the 10k vanilla without needing anything to be locked or anything else, just simple 10k beater is really, really nice. And let's skip the last grade 1, grade 2 slots for later, and let's just go straight to the grade 3 Schwarzschild. Grade 3 Schwarzschild skill is Counterblast 3 Persona Blast, lock 3 of your opponent's rear guards, get plus 10 plus 1 crit. Some people forget that it gets plus 10 plus 1 crit because the triangle lock is just so big. And again, this deck is about effective locking because each time you use a skill, you're triangle locking, right? You don't need to rely on, well, I'm going to break ride Knight of Entropy on Infinite Zero in order to triangle lock. No, this card works by itself. It fetches itself by on place Counterblast 1, add a Schwarzschild to your Schwarzschild to your hand, and it works by itself. So even if you don't draw into it, you can still Persona Blast. Your right chain could help you draw into a Schwarzschild. Again, we're going to put the draw trigger on this card because we don't want to add a heal trigger to our hand because of a ride chain. That's pretty dumb. But yeah, so I think that this card is definitely really great. Triangle lock our opponent, whether that's, well, you know, you're playing really aggressively, you want that crit pressure, you have 2 rearguard swings to the face, it's really, really good. And especially threatening when your opponent's already at 4 damage. We play 4 Infinite Zero Dragons because this is the best locker in the game. When you break ride, you get to Counterblast 1, give your Vanguard plus 10, and lock 1 front row and 1 back row. So you get to basically almost finish your triangle lock. And it's just really, really good. It means that your opponent only has 2 columns to interact with for the next turn, defensively and then offensively. In addition, on attack plus 3, not requiring the boost to get the plus 3 definitely helps you hit numbers early on, and bully some 9k or 8k grade 2s. We play 1 Nebula Lord Dragon because Nebula Lord is a great card. Don't get me wrong, but its skill is quite mediocre and doesn't really synergize with the winning image of the Schwarzschild build. Limit Break 4 at the start of your battle phase, Vanguard Circle, of course. All your front row gets plus 3, and for each of your opponent's lock cards. In addition, if your opponent had 3 or more, draw 1 card. So the draw is really good. And I definitely do think that pumping up the power is a great idea because it helps you pump up those 8k or weaker rearguards and makes them more viable in the Nebula build. But Counterblast 1 to lock 1, it is more efficient. It is cheap lock. It is, you know, cheap lock is still really solid, but it doesn't lock front row, and so that means that Nebula is actually positioned more defensively than offensively in my perspective, and it doesn't really help synergize with the aggressive play that you really want. And lastly, we play 4 Knight of Entropy. Not just because it is Entropy name, I definitely think that is a great card. On place, Counterblast 2, lock 1, even if you're not at Limit Break 4. Of course, you're going to be rarely using it too early on unless you really want to push for damage and you think your opponent doesn't have that many defenses. But being able to pseudo triangle lock when you on your break ride turn, being able to be that like last trump card to lock your opponent's front row and you have multiple more nodes to attack your opponent's face with is really, really good. One of the weaknesses is that it is a 10k vanilla, so sometimes, well, in the meta, most of your opponent's Vanguards are going to be 11k, but it still has that vanilla LB4 plus 5 on attack, so you've got that going for you, I guess, but it definitely means that you need to commit a booster behind the Vanguard most of the time, which is a bad thing about the Knight of Entropy. But generally speaking, Counterblast 2 to lock anything, especially front row rearguards, is really big and swings games. Whether you're in a pinch, you don't have enough defenses, you want to block your opponent's 1 column attack, or you want to play aggressively, and actually it just works for both ways, right? So it's just really, really strong. And now, the tech picks, we have Imaginary Orthox and Negligible Hydra. These are self-damagers, and you're like, what are you, smoking Entropy? Why are you playing self-damagers? This is a break ride deck. This is not a break ride deck, okay? This is not a break ride deck. It can break ride, but that's not the main goal. This is important because people know how to play against Infinite Zero now. People know how to play against Link Joker. They know you'll run out of steam, right? And they know to keep you at 3. But like, what happens if I just re-ride Schwarzschild, Persona Blast because I have a self-damager? Well, GGWP, yo. Like, you're out of resources. You think you thought you could stall me? Well, I'm pushing for game, and that's it. That's that. So people don't really expect the self-damagers. Helps you proc your Schwarzschild, helps you get your 10 plus 5 if you really need it. if you accidentally rode into Nebula, which is like really, really rare, but well, at least you get to pump up your numbers earlier on if you're that desperate. And most importantly, self-damagers actually help propel your aggressive game, right? It means that you can proc your heal triggers even though you're technically not at a damage disadvantage. And it means that you can actually nullify or mitigate your opponent's heal triggers depending on the situation. So the self-damagers actually help you swing the game a lot, helps you proc your Schwarzschild earlier on, generate that aggression. Aggression is all the deck is about. And overall, even though those stats are weak, well, you have a lot of options, and your Lanthanum is definitely going to help you boost your grade 2s and stuff. 6k booster can still help you hit numbers with your grade 2s and grade 3s. So overall, they do great. You're not going to commit a lot of spaces for them because, of course, your other pieces are more important, your Ride Chain, your Lanthanum, or your PG. But it still has a spot in my mind. And I definitely do think that it comes into play so much that I definitely do think it's super valuable to have and test out. If you haven't tested them out before, maybe give them a shot, right? Maybe give them a shot. Again, if you're playing the pure build, right, without the Ride Chain, do not play the self-damagers. I do not advocate for them, but in the Schwarzschild build, I really, really advocate for them, okay? So I guess with that said, let's go to a fight and see how this deck works in play. So let's get back and get started with a game. I have had pretty good success with this this list so far, and went from, I don't know, like below Legend 30 and then went pretty smoothly to Legend 32 and 33 recently. So here I think, okay, let's check out the matchup. I think we're pretty comfortable with this hand, really. We have the grade 1 Ride Chain, which is honestly what you're trying to hard mulligan for. And even if we miss the grade 2, we can always rewrite it because of the grade 1 skill. And the grade 3 we can always pick up later. Like it is, like to me, I do value writing it first. But I do think that even if you write it afterwards, you know, you still have a threat. And when you're at, you know, 4, and then you still, you draw into it later, you can still ride it, get the Persona, and then just straight up Persona Blast. And that is a really effective play too. So luckily here, oh, that's pretty good. So we drew into the grade 3 and grade 2. And obviously we're going to ride the grade 1. It's pretty straightforward, right? We're going to search, we have the grade 3, that's okay. So that means that we have our Persona Blasts on demand. Considering playing out the Lanthanium, the Linchu does threaten it, but honestly, in most matchups, you want to call it out, and in this case, if our opponent does choose to snipe it, well, they're losing a booster, and Eradicators really need that booster behind their Vanguard. So I think it's okay to play it out and see what happens. If they don't snipe it, we can punish them for it. If they do, well, they're losing a booster and a Counter Blast, which could come into play later on, and I'm definitely fine with that. I definitely do think that the Lanthanum is really, really good. 7+3 on Ride. We guarantee that we have the unlock, but even if we don't, it is a threat. And when we lock, whether with Mobius or Lanthanum, or with the Gravitar Ride Chain, well, it becomes a 10k booster, and then you hit 20k numbers with a 10k attacker or a 19k column, and generally punish those your average grade 2 Vanguard. So our opponent did hit the heal trigger with the Vowing Reverse, so the Linchu didn't even have to come into play. Consideration here, we're just gonna ride the grade 2. I think this is a pretty straightforward play as well. And yeah, I mean, considering just locking the Lorentz Force, because they're gonna ride grade 3 next turn, we're gonna deal damage next turn, so not giving them that efficient counterblast is really good. And here, by calling out the 10k, we're building a 20k column. So even if our opponent does hit a trigger, we're still going to pass. And it didn't really matter since we did hit a draw trigger. But what we're trying to do is basically reduce the influence of variance, right? So that is how I try to play the game. But with this deck, if you are going first and you can bully, when you're grade 2 and you can bully grade 1, Vanguards, so you went first, you ride grade 2 first, your opponent's still on grade 1, you can play greedy and punish and try to push out your opponent's resources. And this is particularly effective because you have units that scale up in power on your grade 2 turn, you have front row lock, and you have a lot of ways to kind of counteract your opponent's aggression even if they choose to retaliate. So I think that this is something that the deck really excels at. Opponent does, of course, check double triggers, draw trigger into heal trigger. But if we check a trigger here, then we're good. We hit an entropy coming in clutch. Entropy coming in clutch. Okay. Very, very good. Very good. So opponent's 19 can't even touch us. Next turn, Nebula is not really an option. I don't think Nebula is a ride at all. I'm considering if we should counterblast for the Schwarzschild, actually. Because if we do counterblast, that actually hinders the effectiveness of our self-damagers. Because, well, even if we counterblast, right, and we are at 3, if we self-damage, we're at 4, but we need 3 open counterblasts to actually do our Persona Blast. So I think, we're gonna ride the Schwarz, but we're probably not gonna use the Persona Search. Okay, can we call that? Can we coin it? Persona Search? So we're not gonna use it. I think just setting up a 9k and then setting up Nebula, yeah, is pretty good. We're just gonna push opponent to 3, and see where we can go from there. No triggers, okay. Can we push to 3? No, we can't push to 3. This is pretty bad, I think, pretty bad. But though opponent doesn't really have an incentive to reride other than the Lorentz Force, so the Lorentz Force feels kind of dead right now because you're minusing 1 in order to use the Lorentz Force, right? You're rewriting, so I don't really know. Opponent's playing a weird jumble of grade 3s. We're seeing Vowing Reverse. We're seeing the Sparkhorn Dragon, I believe. The on-hit counterblast 1, retire 1. We're seeing Gauntlet Buster. So pretty interesting mix of grade 3s. But that doesn't really detract from our play that much. Armor Break as well. Maybe it's just a I was gonna say maybe he's a fan of the red hair guy. What's his name? Another heal trigger and another grade 3. Very, very interesting. Again, crit trigger with Electric Shaper. This is like the 5th grade 3 in this deck. This is kind of scary though. 4 to 1 is a pretty bad. Linchu, yeah, get rid of the 7+3s. Really, honestly, pretty good play because they're ahead right now. Here, do we want to use the Schwarz yet? Probably not. We don't want to use it yet because we're not actually pushing for game, right? So we're going to play it out for one more turn. We're going to build our columns. We're going to set up our back row to kind of avoid the Gauntlet Buster. And we're going to try to push, and then we're going to push for game the next turn if we make it. Hopefully we do. And let's just see what happens here. Draw trigger is pretty good. All right, we draw into the heal, which is really bad, but at least it's a draw trigger? Question mark. Okay, crit trigger. All right, very high rolly with a mix of basically everything. Okay, opponent skips ride, pretty standard here. I do think that, well, like one thing that I didn't really cover was going from Schwarz into Knight of Entropy, because that, if you didn't use the Persona Search, Counterblast 1, then you effectively use your 5 Counterblast, you front row lock 2 units, and then you front row lock 1 unit to seal off the game. Opponent does have that grade 3 that is kind of stuck there, right? So what that means is next turn, if we triangle lock, well, we can't really triangle lock. There's no rearguard behind Vanguard. If we lock 3, okay, that's pretty good. If we lock 3, and then the following turn we can counterblast 2 to lock the grade 2, then we have a really clear shot of winning this game. This is our winning image right now. So let's see if we can fulfill it. We're just gonna Schwarz. Doesn't really matter which back row we lock, but yeah. Just see what happens here. Checking my Yeah, calling it out. It's not like you can actually reuse it because use it twice really unless you heal, because there is like no unflipper. We're gonna attack with Vanguard first to proc PG or win. Um, draw into PG, which is really nice. Though it doesn't really matter because our opponent doesn't have any multi-attack options in this build. I mean, except for Descendants, I guess. So I guess drawing the PG protects us from Descendants, and we can't really assume that they don't have Descendant because they're playing like one of each grade 3 we've seen so far, like 6 different grade 3s, which is pretty crazy, honestly. Gauntlet Buster snipes the grade 1, really good. Not the 7+3. Go for face. All right, so this is pretty. Oh, see, Descendant. Don't know what this lad is up to, but it's some scary stuff, you know. Draw into trigger, of course, and here we are probably gonna just go into Night of Entropy and seal the game. A very beautiful Night of Entropy. Count 2, lock 1 front row. Opponent. How many PGs did our opponent showed? 1 PG, so they have three left, and we're just gonna go face 15. Yeah, opponent didn't have any heal triggers left, so as long as our opponent doesn't have the PGs, then we're good to go. We only have 3 attacks though, so this is kind of tight. Will they have the 3rd PG? Will they have the 3rd PG? That's the question. And nice. Honestly, I didn't expect that, but that's GG. Alright, so I guess we get to see how Schwartz locking is really strong. Even if you're behind, you can still catch up, and then you can end the game with Night of Entropy. So that is basically it. And thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, like it, and subscribe if you haven't already and you want to see more gameplay. Let me know down below if you want to see my Nebula build and variant, and I will be sure to do that soon if there's enough interest. So let's end it off like that, and I will see you all next time. Bye.